Welcome to the Goffstown Planning Board meeting. This is our regular scheduled meeting, September 28, 2023. We always begin with our introductions, and since Dale's busy, Dave, we'll start with you.
Dave Pierce, I'm an alternate member.
Colleen Mayu.
Scott Azana, Town Engineer.
Tim Redmond.
Philip Devanza.
Carlos Adams, Select Board Representative.
Joanne Duffy, Planning Director.
Joanne, we have a quorum, correct?
Yes, you do.
Okay, good. I'm going to go to...
Will I be voting tonight?
You definitely will be voting.
Thank you.
Not twice,
Just going
once.
to put it in the record.
No, I hadn't got there yet, Dave. We're going to, the Planning Board Rules and Procedures book, we're going to hold off on until we have a full board. The CIP Committee Process Handbook, we're going to hold off on until the chair of the CIP Committee is going to be here to usher us through them. So first item on our correspondence is approval and correction of the September 14th minutes. I have a couple of pages that I marked that I'd like to go through unless someone else has something first.
No, I'll make a motion to discuss them. I'll make a motion
Okay, motion to what?
to approve them for discussion.
Approve them for discussion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Colleen. Thank you. Motion approved for discussion. Everyone say aye. That's approved. All those in favor say aye.
Are we going to do the
Opposed?
discussion first?
Excuse me?
Are we going to do the discussion before we vote?
Well, you made a motion. Don't you have to act on a motion when you make a motion?
Well, the motion was to approve the minutes,
For discussion.
and then we have a discussion.
Somebody
You
has,
said make a motion to discuss the minutes.
I thought you had something you wanted to bring up and make some changes. That's why, in order to discuss the minutes, they got to be placed on the table.
Okay.
You place them on the table by making a
All
motion
right,
to
so we're going to hold
approve.
off on voting on the motion. Thank you, Phil. So I had on page 14 of the minutes, only the fourth paragraph, second line, all the way in, it says DOT in lowercase letters. It should be DOT uppercase because it's the word dot instead of DOT. 18, that one I did not, I checked on that one. 21. Page 21. About 2/3 of the way down the page, it says Tim Redmond said that's administrative through him and Joanne Duffy. Nothing is administrative through me, it's strictly through Joanne. And
Maybe that
I
meant
think the
through
Scott.
me. Maybe I was speaking and you
I
said
think
it was
that- I think
administrative
that's what it
through
was.
him, meaning me.
through you, you were
Yeah.
speaking?
Yeah.
All right, so I'd like to confer that was through Scott Lozana, not through me. That's through him. And then the next page, right before the word other business, I don't remember saying he confirmed the members got the letters from abutters and interested parties. But I don't remember saying, I only asked the applicant to return to the sewer commission that night to discuss the rail trail crossing. I don't remember saying he confirmed members got the letters from abutters and interested parties, so I'd like to strike that sentence completely from the record, because I don't remember, wouldn't have said.
you're correct.
All right. Motion's been made to approve the minutes. Now, Phil, would you approve it as amended? Is that what you need to do?
No, we'll approve them with the...
With the amendments.
Approve with the amendments.
Okay. So that was Phil and Colleen, right? Okay, motion on the table to approve the minutes as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Anybody opposed? No. And then is any abstentions? No. Okay, that passes. Second item is, Joanne, could you do the number 2, the request for map 5, lot 26?
Yes, so map 5, lot 26, Elm Street, landscape stonemasonry business was continued to this evening, but they are not ready due to the, it has nothing to do with their control. They had someone that needs to come over and do some test pits and they're still waiting. So they would like to continue the application until, to the October 26th date.
Have they waived the 65-day clock?
They did.
Good. Anybody want to discuss the request to continue this application?
I'll make a motion to continue.
Second.
Motion by Phil, seconded by Collis, to grant the request to be continued to map 5, lot 26, be continued to October 26. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, motion passes. 3 is no go, 4 is no go. Joanne, could you tell us about the select board's land
Yeah.
acquisition?
So the select board would like the planning board's comments on a parcel of land that they would like to purchase. It's a small sliver of land over at Rotary Park. And this has to do with the bridge committee that they were looking at the possibility of putting in a pedestrian bridge. The map is attached. It's the green area here that's owned by the Rotary.
Yep.
And in order to do that bridge and have a place for it to land, they would need that land. So the Rotary has offered up a sale. They've agreed on a price, and now they're going for a public hearing. The public hearings are 9/11 and 9/25, and then the board will vote on 10/2. So they're looking for the planning board comments on whether you would be in favor of this.
Planning board members?
I'll speak up. It's an important aspect of the village pedestrian bridge ad hoc committee that was established by the select board, so as to provide the landing spot on that side of the river, so we can move forward with the proposal and the efforts to bring a pedestrian bridge into the middle of town. I think it's important. We've negotiated with Rotary for a reasonable and fair purchase price, as well as some conditions that allows them to use the Rotary Park.
Thank you. Other board members? I'd like to go back about, how many years, Phil, maybe 12, 14 years ago, we talked about a pedestrian bridge going back on those foundations, and it was scuttled by members of our downtown committee that it was going to block the view of the concrete bridge, and it was going to ruin the regatta, because it was going to be in the way for viewing. Is that still going to be a problem, or are we buying land that we're never going to actually build a bridge on? Or buying the area where the bridge is going to go? Because it met a lot of pushback when it was talked about, because I was one of the people trying to push forward with that many years ago.
I think, my personal opinion, I think you see the sentiment has changed relative to that,
Okay?
because that is so important to the economy of the village. Some of those businesses have told us that they derive most, if not all, of their annual income, some of them, from that one event. And it's that important to them. And it's also, I think, important to the character of downtown. It's historical in nature. It replaces something that's historical in nature. Certainly couldn't afford to put a covered bridge back there, but something much smaller that can still accommodate pedestrians, bicycles, as well as small emergency vehicles.
I just would like to know what the sentiment of the merchants is downtown actually, rather than just have a word, because the word the last time was negative. So I'd like to make sure if we're going to invest in buying that land, it's not just for the sake of buying it,
Well,
never building a bridge across. So that's my point.
yeah, we've certainly,
My
it's a public
personal
hearing.
opinion.
Public hearing, they've certainly got an opportunity to show up at public hearing and voice
You've
their...
had your 2 public hearings.
Yeah, they've
There
already-
were no unfavorable comments.
Right, none at all.
Well, that's a normal procedure, because people really don't know about them and they don't go to meetings. That's pretty obvious.
But went through the formality.
I know, format.
Can lead a horse to water, can't make him drink.
I was run down to town hall and read the wall, make sure I don't miss a meeting, because I have nothing else to do. Hang around.
Like all the people that are here, right, to watch us.
That's why we're here.
David?
I'd just like to add, having the select board purchase the North Shore abutment now would be very favorable when the town would apply for a grant to help with the construction of the bridge, having both abutments owned by the town would facilitate approval of the grant and would make the design process less complicated.
Okay.
Cut some red tape.
Joe?
Tim, to add a little bit to your comment, and maybe a little bit prior to your comment, I remember coming into town one day years ago when I drove into the village. I looked around and I said there was something wrong. I said I didn't know what I was missing, and I looked around and all of a sudden I realized what it was. The bridge was gone.
Burned down.
Yeah, it was gone, and I learned that it was burned down by a couple of,
Mischief makers.
yeah. But one thing that would be nice would be on that parcel of land that's purchased, if the entrance to the bridge could duplicate the old bridge. Just the facade of the old bridge, so when you looked at it, and those pictures are available, part of the town history.
That suggestion's been moved forward, but we aren't anywhere near the design phase yet, but that's certainly coming.
Right, well, I just wanted to,
Yeah.
I would like to see a consensus from the downtown merchants and how they feel about actual statements from the merchants that are on the record rather than, we think it's a great idea. Okay. All right, so the board needs to act on the request for the selectmen, request a recommendation for the select board. Does anybody want to make a motion? Generally, we don't comment, don't we, Joanne? Hasn't that been our comments in the past? No comment?
Usually,
That's what I
unless
thought.
you're really in favor of something.
If you're in favor of it, well, if someone wants to make a motion, we can vote on the motion.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend favorable, proceed with the purchase of the parcel of land owned by the Rotary
I'll second.
Club.
Dave and Colleen. Motion's been made to recommend the purchase of the land by David, second by Colleen. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? I'm opposed. Anybody else abstention? No abstentions. One opposed. Okay, Joanne, number 6. Another recommendation to the select board for a building permit on a Class 6 road.
Okay, so this one,
Is that Kennedy Hill?
yes.
yep.
So, okay, so there's a few items I just wanted to go over with this one.
May I ask you first, Joanne, is this the same family that came in and presented to us a long time ago?
No, I don't think
It's
so.
a different
I think it's
applicant.
different applicant.
So this has never been to before us?
No,
Okay.
We did have someone in here
Right.
about this lot
Yes.
in the last, within the last year or so.
yes. It wasn't this lot, it was another lot nearby.
Oh, okay.
All right.
This same person owns that other lot as well, though.
Okay.
They bought
Oh,
both
that's
lots.
why the name is familiar.
Yeah, I thought I looked at it.
Yeah, okay.
So please, Joanne, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, so this person, maybe a year or so ago, purchased land over on Kennedy Hill Road, and he has gone out there and planted thousands of Christmas trees. He's starting up a Christmas tree farm. So then he decided that he would like to build a barn for his equipment, but also have an apartment upstairs on the second story of the barn, and live there. So he went to the zoning board of adjustment. They granted 2 variances and a special exception. That, as you probably all know, Kennedy Hill Road is a Class 6 road.
Right.
So he needed a variance to build a single-family dwelling in the commercial industrial flex zone and to allow a proposed agricultural operation. Then he needed a variance because he didn't have the required street frontage. And then he needed a special exception to be able to build all of the agricultural, the barn, the living space on a Class 6 road. So he still has to go to the Board of Selectmen for approval. And they're looking for this board's comments on, whether or not they have any issues with it. My biggest concern is years ago when, so instead of coming in off of Mast Road, how the other person was planning to do, he was planning to come in sort of behind where Green Thumb Landscaping is. He's decided that it would be easier because of the topography of the land and the ledge to come in off of Longbrook. Now, Longbrook subdivision was approved several years ago, and as a condition of that subdivision, as you come to the end of Longbrook, where it meets up with Kennedy Hill, there's a sign that says no left turn lane onto Kennedy Hill. There's also a what does it say? Do not enter sign into Kennedy Hill.
Is it gated presently?
And there's a gate as you turn onto Kennedy Hill from Longbrook and you go up past those houses that are there. There's a gate. There's some houses. There's the farmhouse, and then there's a few houses further up the road, and then there's a gate. And the road is, closed to gates and bars. So he would like to come in from that way. The problem that I see with that is I heard of another person that wants to come in and do something very similar, build on Kennedy Hill. And probably most likely they would ask to do the same thing. And I think when that project of Longbrook was put in many years ago, I think that the planning board put all of that in place because they were very adamant that they didn't want traffic other than those who lived on Kennedy Hill to be going through that farmland area where the house and the barn are very, very close to the road.
Well, that's a funny statement because Kennedy Hill goes all the way down to Addison Road.
Right, I'm talking from Addison.
I know, why
to
are we restricting traffic on the road in front of the farm? It's a town road.
I'm talking about Kennedy Hill where it goes from Addison to Longbrook.
That's right, and I think the
Because
discussion
it's
about
less-
that was to prevent the people from Longbrook using that as a shortcut to get out.
Right.
to
They were-
Addison Road.
They were trying to prevent the traffic from using
So
it,
now we're
other than
talking-
the people who live there.
So now we're talking about an applicant who wants to build on Kennedy Hill, but wants to access through Longbrook. That's another subdivision.
Right.
It's like reverse discrimination against people on Longbrook. Now they're gonna have added traffic through their subdivision because we don't want people using Kennedy Hill.
So, and they also said that if Kennedy Hill were to be used for the two-way traffic, that it would need to be widened and the trees would need to come down. And the way it is now, it's very historical. Nothing's been touched in that area for years and years and years. So now we have
The
someone,
stone walls are really close to the road.
yeah,
too.
they are too. So now we
So
have
it's
someone,
property lines.
right. So now we have someone who wants to use Longbrook, and this information was not provided to the zoning board when they made their decision. They didn't really look so much as where the access was coming from. They were basically looking at, someone having a house and a barn and a barn and an apartment and a farm on Kennedy Hill where this particular house would be, or not house, barn would be. So I think the town needs to take that into consideration, because if you let one person do it, and then if somebody buys another piece out there, and then all of a sudden, this particular company has, he's a landscaper, he has lots of trucks and landscaping equipment, but also he's planning, or he's started this tree business because he's planning to do in the future a Christmas tree farm.
Right.
Which would mean then more public going up there. So I think this is,
It doesn't necessarily mean public. It might not be a cut your own.
well, maybe not,
Yeah.
but,
Most of the Christmas tree farms around here are cutting
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Nobody does commercial cutting around here. These are all hobby farms that people come to, and they have the delight of bringing their children and cutting their own tree everywhere around.
Yeah.
I
so
wouldn't
I'm
plan on
just
being
bringing
commercial.
this up because I think it's important to plan this out instead of doing this in piecemeal and zoning by variance, and that's what this is.
No, I'm not so sure that protecting the resident on Kennedy Hill through traffic is in our best interest, because I live on a bad corner on Route 13, and I can't ask to restrict traffic on Route 13 because I can't see to get out of my driveway. It's not fair. myself.
It's not even that, it's the way these buildings have been, they're probably 200 years old.
Yeah, I know it is.
They're right on the road practically,
No, it's a town road.
inches from the road.
It's a town road.
It's a town road, yes, it's a class 5
town
road, up until that point where the gate starts.
Right.
So
It's
he would
technically
be,
a two-way road too.
Yeah,
It's just
you-
no left turn off of Longbrook.
if you, you know,
That was by design.
That,
that was
I guess that
per
was for
planning
the,
board.
that was from the planning board
That's right.
when that Longbrook
That's right.
went in, yeah.
Right. To mitigate traffic on that road
Mhm.
from the Longbrook residents.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about someone who wants to live on Kennedy Hill,
Mhm.
on another portion of Kennedy Hill, they should be allowed to use Kennedy Hill to go to and from their properties with no discretion. And that whole business of having, protecting that farm and barn from traffic, I think that's a moot point. If someone buys on Kennedy Hill, they got the right.
And he's not asking to use Kennedy Hill. He's
No.
asking to use Longbrook.
Has he specifically said that?
That's what he told.
So why don't we send, why don't
I don't have anything in writing
Mm.
that says
And as I
that.
recall, when Longbrook was before the planning board, there was discussion about providing a turnaround at the end of Longbrook, so as to discourage
Right.
or avoid the need to have to continue through down
Right.
Kennedy.
Which I don't believe there is one either.
We also did a subdivision.
I don't think there is a turnaround
No.
up there though.
There is, I thought they made provision to put one up there.
No,
But I
it's
could
just
be
a
wrong.
T.
Yeah,
It was a few years ago.
It was part of the discussion.
Phil's been waiting. Phil?
Yeah. The question I guess that I have, the applicant, or what's before us, is to build on a Class 6 road, is that correct? Is this has this gone through the proper process, or should it have gone to the select board first?
Before they got their variance, you mean?
This was Derek's order of operations that he wanted
Well,
this guy to
I'm
go
not,
through.
I'm just, my recollection in past things, where people have come in to do this, that they had to go to the process to get the approval to build on that road before they got variances and stuff. Because this is putting every other board in a situation that they already got the variance, zoning has been changed.
Mhm.
All right, so if zoning's been changed, what's the purpose of going to the select board?
Right.
Just, I guess the RSA that requires it.
Yeah, but the intent, that's what I'm saying, I think there's a process, I question the process that's been gone through to
So
get to
his-
this point.
His second parcel was already approved to build on when he bought it. It actually expires this November, I believe. Does that sound right?
I think so.
And I don't think I don't think that one made it to the select board. I think it just went through zoning. It never went to.
So he's never built on the first parcel?
No.
And it never came here.
He decided the first parcel wasn't the best to build on. It was steeper, it was on the ledgy area, so the second one was, I believe, where he
So
he
because,
thought was best for the building.
so because of the fact that he's already got it all cleared and he's got Christmas trees planted is like leverage for us to approve it? Is that the idea?
No, I'm not saying anything about that.
We were told they had Christmas trees already all planted.
Mhm.
They do.
All right. What does the select board consider, Carlos, when they grant permission to build on a Class 6 road? Do they make it clear that there's no fire protection available to that
Absolutely.
resident?
Yep, they have to sign
They
a
have to sign.
release, a waiver. To
That gets
effect.
recorded in the,
And
Exactly.
how often would the fire department not try to drive down to the scene to put out a fire? Probably never.
Yeah,
Never.
Probably never.
So the whole point of the waiver is foolish in my book.
Liability.
Oh, liability, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when this
We
goes
couldn't
to
get there, we
the,
couldn't get there to put out a fire because you said you would sign a release.
Well, it's happened. It's
Well,
happened where
it
the fire
has.
department hasn't been able to get, and the house burnt down.
Yeah.
So it's strictly a liability issue for the town.
That's my recollection.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think there's a foundation out there that on a house that had burned.
so DPW will make a recommendation to the select board that if they approve it, there's a kind of like a long list of improvements to the Class 6 road
Yeah.
they would have to make.
Always.
So
And who follows up on that before they get his building permit?
I mean,
Mhm.
we could put some mechanism.
We
to-
could. We're not,
Well-
obviously, at this point. All right, Phil, please.
Well, I guess I don't recall selectmen, board of selectmen or select board requiring an applicant to make improvements on a Class 6 road. Because it seems to me that if you're requiring to make improvements on a Class 6 road, and are you requiring those to be to town standards? If they are, is the town going to take the road over? And it seemed to me that the applicant at some point in time would have a good point, legal point, that the town required them to make improvements to town standards, so now the town should accept the road and plow it.
It's a double-edged sword, be
Yeah.
careful.
Mm.
Any more discussion of David?
Phil, I recall in my term on the board, an abutter to a Class 6 road would apply to the select board for permission to make improvements to the Class 6 road.
That's a difference. That's different. They're applying for permission, not the town requiring them to make improvements to town specifications in order to have the approval granted. There's a difference. If I come to you and ask you for something, and I'm not doing it to town just because I remember, it was just they wanted to spread some gravel.
Yes.
That's basically what it was. Nothing to do with town standards, nothing to do to bring the road up to town specs.
So this isn't to bring the road to town standards, this is to make the road passable for fire apparatus.
And that's an NFPA requirement.
I wouldn't even
so-
go there.
Or give it, they're gonna sign a waiver that the fire truck can't get there. Why are we telling them to make it suitable for our
So
FPA?
state,
Like
state
safety.
building code is, there's a requirement that it needs to meet the NFPA access.
So the whole waiver's a moot
that's-
point then, right? I think
No.
this needs a lot more thought before anybody does anything on this. I think you need to flush out all the RSAs and the requirements before this board makes a recommendation.
I know many places that the town, unless the town's made changes, the town would not make improvements to the road because it was a Class 6 road.
Yeah, we would not make
Well,
the
the
improvements.
town would, right?
The town can't.
Yeah, the town, because once you do any maintenance.
Town cannot
Yeah.
make changes on a Class 6.
We're talking about a property
The
owner.
town most certainly can make changes to a Class 6 road if it chooses to. You could upgrade it to a Class 5 road.
Yes, would have to do that.
Right.
And who's going to determine that, what improvements that they make?
All right,
are acceptable?
I think we've already beat this horse.
Yeah,
think it's-
I agree.
I think we should, as a board, send this back to the selectmen, that we need more information if we're going to be asked to make a recommendation. We need to know where the hurdles are and where the requirements are and who's responsible for what before they ask us for a recommendation. And if they choose not to, they can make a decision without our recommendation.
And there's case study on this. This isn't the first time we've been down this path.
Right. So we can get some answers.
Story Road comes to mind.
We can get some answers, I
Yeah, a
guess.
lot of roads come
Yeah.
to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the process.
The only thing I would say about Story Road, Collis, Story Road is a nice level road going into a house. This is a billy goat cap on this particular
And Story
property.
Roads existed for,
And Story Road goes all the way through.
It does, but I think it stops at the house in question at this time.
but
All right. Okay, folks, does everyone concur that we should send this back to the selectmen without a motion, or does somebody want to make a motion at this time?
Without a recommendation?
It's up to these boards to decide what they want to do. Okay, clock's ticking, what are we doing?
I thought we were sending it back.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
making sure no one wanted to make a motion to make a recommendation.
I wouldn't make a recommendation, but I think that they do need some review and action from us before, by statute, before the selectmen can authorize the issuance, but I don't think that we're in any position to make any recommendation without knowing. So I think, what's the status of the road, what are the improvements that are gonna be needed?
The only thing I might say, Colleen, that they asked us for a recommendation and we did not comment, we've given up our right to make a recommendation, and therefore they can act without our recommendation. I'm sure that they'd be allowed to do that. Because we've been offered the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
If we don't make a recommendation, then we've given it a pass. I think they could make that argument. But,
So you think that we should have a motion so that that argument doesn't go forward?
I'm just saying, I'm just looking at all the bad sides of it. That's kind of my nature, to make sure we look at all the bad sides before we get all rosy and agree with it.
Or could we table it and reserve the right to revisit it once?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
So somebody make a motion to table it then, please.
Motion to table.
Second by?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. All right, Joe, we've got through all those items. What's our first application?
So our first application is map 5, lot 54 and 54-1. This is a site plan hearing for a 30-unit residential condominium development. The owner is Hemley Investments LLC. This is located at the corner of Mast Road and Tatro Drive. It is zoned commercial industrial flex, and it was continued from the September 14th meeting. The purpose for the continuation was to allow the applicant to meet with the Conservation Commission, which they did last night, and in front of you, you should have Conservation Commission's.
Could you please go over that, Joanne, for the board and for the public?
Okay, so number 1 was the commission stated that the property and the drainage structures shall be cleared of any invasive plant species, and the maintenance of this must be adhered to, and this should be included in the maintenance plan as part of the homeowners association documents. Number 2, the commission stressed a concern that there are no on-site recreational opportunities being proposed or available to the homeowners, meaning, mainly for children. Number 3, there should be dumpster locations located on the plan. The applicant did advise us that they'd be using a service and they would have individual trash receptacles, but for some reason the conservation would rather see dumpsters. Number 4, runoff from the rooftops and the property in general needs to be reviewed and carefully looked at, as there is a lot of proposed impervious surface.
Board members, have everybody clear on the conservation comments? Anybody have anything to talk about, or are we good to go? All right, what else is there before we get going, Joanne?
Yeah, so if I could just explain, in the staff report, I didn't have anything new to work with. We were working off of the same plans that you've already seen. So what I did was I went through the staff report and I highlighted under each department what the items are included as far as conditions of approval. So anything you see in yellow.
Why don't you just briefly go through them in short order,
Okay.
and just tell everybody what page you're on and what it is, so we can all
Okay.
be on the same.
So on page 4, the fire department has recommended no on-street parking, and that the landscape trees be set far enough back from the edge of the road so the branches do not enter or reduce the road width.
Thank you.
Planning department asks that the applicant label all map and lot numbers of the abutting properties on all sheets. The grading drainage plan, which is Plan A, sheet 8 of 23. The infiltration pond is located partially on map 5, lot 56-3-1, which is owned by Denise Langley. An easement shall be shown on the plan along with an easement document to be recorded.
Okay.
The lighting plan, there are a few areas that do not meet the 0.2 foot candles at the side and rear lot lines. This needs to be corrected.
Okay.
Or a written waiver, because Doug did mention that it was in the driveway and he'd like to have the driveway lit. So either submit a written waiver or adjust the lighting.
Okay.
Number 4, does the board wish to see any outdoor amenities? That's a question from Concom. Number 6, the applicant shall submit a written easement deed and plan showing a portion of the drainage structure on the Langley land, which that's a repeat.
Yep.
Number 7, a temporary construction easement is required for grade Grading the pond on town property. Number 8, please add a note that an irrigation system will be installed on this property. The system must be inspected and functioning prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy permit. Number 9, provide an easement for sections of the rail trail that go through the applicant's property along the lower portion of the site. Number 10, remove the no parking fire lane. So it's more of the fire lane, not the no parking signs,
Keep a no parking sign, just
Yeah.
eliminate the fire lane part of it.
because they can't be enforced. Number 11, revise the sidewalk size from 4 feet to 5 feet wide on the appropriate sheets of the plan. Number 12, permission is needed from the select board to allow a driveway crossing over the rail trail. The property because the property is owned by the town of Goffstown. I don't think that's been started yet, that discussion.
Let me ask you a question. Don't they already have a pre-existing driveway from days gone by?
They do, but they moved it. So I don't know how the
All right, well, we'll let.
selectmen
Rebecca
feel
go
about that. Number 13, how will the snow storage be addressed? The board had asked about possibility of adding some additional snow storage. And then under DPW, this is on page 6.
You don't have to go through all these, there's way too many to go through.
Okay. So I was
I thought
trying
there
not
was
to.
less, but we'll stop at DPW.
Okay. So then what I did was I took all of the ones that were highlighted in yellow and I moved them down to proposed conditions of approval. Now, I don't know if you want to see any of these come back to you, or you wanted to leave this up to staff. And you also should discuss the conservation comments that just came in tonight.
So we should find out how many of these issues have been addressed.
Well, I don't think any of them have, because like I said, we don't have any new plans, nothing was submitted. So I think he was trying to wait until everything.
So we'd have to wait and do it administratively, you're saying?
Yeah, or have them come back, those are
Well,
basically
if
the
there are details, we can
alternatives.
talk about that.
Numbering's a little funky on the proposed conditions of approval.
Oh, is it?
It jumps from 5 to 2.
That's the hardest thing of doing this, is the formatting.
So one should, so we'll adjust the numbers later.
Number 11 can be removed because they did already do that one.
Well, we'll go through them and we'll, instead of jumping around right now. Okay. Any board members have any questions for staff? Whether it's DPW staff or planning staff?
Is staff generally comfortable that these are all able to be handled administratively? Is there anything that you think is substantive that,
I think really, in my opinion, the only one that I would like to see some discussion on is whether the board would like to see any sort of outdoor activities for children, like, a little playground or some benches for people to sit and congregate or whatever. Because more than likely, because these are 3 bedrooms, you will have some small children there.
You mean they're not going to sit inside and play on their video games like all the kids do today?
Hopefully
They're
not.
going to do that.
Jesus. Okay, anybody else for staff?
My comments were very minor.
Well, at the end of the discussion, we'll talk about administrative versus revert, coming back to the board. The
so
board would concur.
in regards to the Conservation Commission, one of their comments, the runoff from the rooftops, the property in general, you've reviewed the drainage.
I spent more time with that drainage report than I'd like to admit, so.
Is that addressed in
Okay.
the drainage report? Rooftop runoff?
Yeah, the roof drop,
Okay,
The
the
roof
question,
drains are-
is the question
Yes.
asked and answered?
yes, they account for all the impervious in there.
Okay.
And how about the first question about a drainage maintenance agreement? We have, that is going to be part of your recommendation?
Yes, I believe it is. It didn't show up
Well-
as one of the,
So they're saying it should be in the maintenance plan of the homeowner docks. I have the docks, but I
Well,
don't
that's
have
because
them with
ultimately
me.
the homeowners are going to own the place, not the applicant.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So it's where that,
So I'll need to check on that, and if not, they'll need to insert something if you're in favor of that.
Joanne, you did not include all of my comments in the proposed conditions, so looks like my comments number 6 through 17 are not included, which 16 is the drainage maintenance agreement one. So,
So that page 7.
yeah, page 7, the ones that say miscellaneous comments and conditions.
Those are not included?
Those don't appear to
Yep.
be there. And those were just kind of the boilerplate ones that,
Well, we'll let you add them to the record at some point. All right, you got your list handy, we'll let you
I've
add
got
them.
them right
into-
here, yeah.
We'll let you add them into the record.
okay.
Did you have those at the last meeting on this? Or did you make
The
those
last
since?
meeting, my comments were left out by mistake, so.
But those are the same comments?
Yeah, I
Yes,
took all
these
of
are,
that.
these are the comments that I
okay.
had from last time.
Okay.
They haven't changed.
No.
So I think the maintenance is covered, the drainage maintenance is covered under Scott's comment that would get included, but the comment specific to the invasive plants
Yeah.
and
Is that
the
new?
maintenance of that,
Is that a new discussion item? Or have we talked
guess-
about that before?
that's a recommendation from the CONSCOM,
Right.
and so
Has invasive plants been identified there, or is it just a general statement if they find them, they need to just get rid of them?
Right, the latter.
The latter, okay.
So their drainage study does have control of invasive plants and all kinds of information in it.
Okay.
So they did include that stuff. It's just getting the new owners that information is always the tricky part.
So does it have to be included in the? well,
So
By
we
reference in the
Maintenance goes to
homeowner's
the owner's
docs.
We
condo docs.
record
Yeah.
the maintenance, the maintenance agreement, but we can also have that language included in the homeowner's docs.
yeah. And if the homeowner's doc references that other
Right.
recorded document.
Right.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none, I'll ask the applicant to come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Doug McGuire. I'm with the DeBay Group and here representing Hemley Investments LLC. When we were here last, I took down a pretty specific set of notations of some items that we were looking to have finalized. They were all fairly minor items, but all the same, they were brought up. My understanding of our last meeting is we recognized that it was a short turnaround, there wouldn't be able to be an advanced packaging. However, I did adjust plans on several of those items to be able to maybe simplify a potential conditional approval, and I've updated those on the plan I brought with me today. In fact, I think it was Barbara Griffin that said, you know, can't we just kind of go through a couple of those in the meeting if they're very minor? So if the board is interested in doing that, I have 11 by 17s that you could follow along. I have a large set, and I can touch on, it's literally like 4 items. So I don't know if the board would like me to hand out an 11 by 17 so you can follow along?
Board members will have a consensus. David?
Yes, we should.
Colleen?
I'd rather, we know that staff has drafted conditions based on what we already have, and if we already know that they're minor, I'd rather, if staff haven't looked at that plan and said that they're good with it, then let's just stick with what we've got. I appreciate the effort and, you know, that you did that, but that's just my opinion.
I mean, my only thought is if you don't need to have a condition that says make a 5-foot sidewalk, you could just say address staff planning comments or something if you wanted. Because, you know, there's a lot of small, very small comments that I don't think those need to be individual conditions.
Let's get through the rest of the board. I think we could at least review the plans tonight. We may decide that we don't like them, but at least we could look at them. Phil?
Well, I understand Colleen's point, because we generally don't accept plans unless they've been sent out so that everybody can look at them, but I think this is something that was discussed at the last meeting, and it was brought up, so I think as long as they're not substantial, after we look at them, though, we might change our mind.
Fair enough, yeah.
Okay, but I think to at least look at them.
Hollister?
Yeah, I agree with Colleen, I don't think there's any substantive new issues that we need to talk about. It's fairly minor stuff that we've already talked about at least once in the past. And I'd like to see us move forward with it.
All right, Doug, would you please distribute the plans to the members of
Yes, sir.
the board up there? What's on the table, Joanne? The old plan?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. And should we decide to look forward on these, we will make sure we leave plans for the other members to, they can have a copy for later.
So again, I wouldn't normally ask to be putting anybody on the spot, but there were very, very minor items, and I'll just touch on a few handful of them. So the first one, and Joanne touched on these as well, but
We're going to follow along with the items that Joanne identified in the staff report, Doug, individually, so we can check them off as we go, or are you going to jump into your presentation and then we're going to circle back to them?
well, there was some specific items that Joanne mentioned, and, you know, if it's easier for you to follow along, for me to point those out, but, you know, as far as easements go, we have drafted easements.
Well, let us,
Those are reflected.
then let's go through her yellow highlighted comments in our packet,
Sure.
and you can address them individually, and maybe we can check them off as we go as administrative or problematic.
Okay, fair enough.
So the first one is the fire department's no on-street parking. Is that something you're going to agree to? And
We already had on the original plans, there were no parking signs on the plan, so I don't
that's
see
checked
that as.
off, and that will show on the plan.
So you'll leave the no parking but remove the fire lane? No,
That came up later on.
said
in
no
the-
Sure.
parking / fire lane sign.
So it'll just say no
No
parking.
parking, yeah.
No on-street parking.
Not an MUTCD sign, is that why?
They said it couldn't be enforced.
So if
'Cause
it's
it's
their
not
comment
like-
that it's not enforceable, it would just go with their opinion.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be-
You could say no parking, but not no parking fire lane.
All right, Doug, the next item was landscape trees need to be set far enough back from the edge of the road so that the branches not enter or reduce the road width. Is that something your landscape plan will reflect?
Yes, it already does in our opinion. We pulled all trees back. I think they were looking at one of the original designs, but the landscape trees are pulled back off the edge of the road.
So that item, when it's reviewed by staff, will appear as taken care of. Move down to Joanne's label map and lot number, so you're abutting properties on all
So-
sheets?
Yep, so
Okay.
my understanding was the only one where they weren't labeled on a substantive sheet was the site plan. I think they were inadvertently turned off. We've turned them back on. Joanne, I don't know if you want them, sometimes we don't put them on like the grading utility plans, because if you have them on the existing plan, you have them on the site plan, it gets a little wordy with a lot of text, and so sometimes we shut off the abutter labeling on, you know, the detail plans. But if the board's pleasure is to have them on everything, then
Well, let's ask Joanne. Joanne, is that something that you want to enforce, all sheets?
Well, I would rather ask Scott because he's the one looking more at the grading plan of others.
I see no purpose in having them on the
Okay.
grading plan.
So then the site plan is
I
fine.
don't think the contractor really would need that, and that's kind of their main page, along
Okay.
with profiles to construct everything.
So we have the next item about the drainage plan, infiltration pond on the neighbor's property. It is addressed again later on, number 6. You have the appropriate documents to be turned in and easements
Yes,
noted on the plans.
we issued all draft easements from the applicant's counsel to Joanne's office today. Don't expect her to have looked at them or anything at this point, and nor do they need to be, but we have easement documents for review and final approval submitted in. And so there's actually 2 easement documents for that drainage grading, and because it's on two separate Langley-owned properties. That's 56-31 and 56. So those 2 parcels, it's actually 2 separate easement documents because they're 2 separate pieces of land, and those have both been submitted.
So Joanne, would those documents be administratively handled through your office once they're Once you've reviewed them, you'll determine that they're correct.
Yes.
The next thing is the lighting plan. What is your plan to correct the lighting plan, Doug?
We have moved one of the lights per the board's suggestion at the last meeting to eliminate the need for any waiver relief, and the plan, we believe, is in compliance. Understand that it needs to be reviewed.
Okay. Scott, can you review that?
Actually, Joanne typically reviews the lighting plan.
Joanne, you do the
It's
lighting
been a-
plan, so you'll administratively decide if it's correct or incorrect?
Sure.
Okay. The board want to see any outdoor amenities, this is coming from staff and from conservation. Board members? I'll ask that question. Phil?
Is there any common land on the plan? I don't recall.
So, I guess for a clarification on that, and I understand why the comment came up, what I said to the Conservation Commission last night, I'd like to say to this board as well, is that, you know, there's improvements being made at the rail trail, which is directly at the front door of this property. I can't imagine any type of recreation that we could propose that would compete with having access to the rail trail where you can ride bikes, walk, you can get to public fields. You're gonna have a great amenity at your front door. The big difference that I see in this particular project is that this is a condominium development. These are not intended to be apartments. So these are all going to be owners that are going to come to the grounds and,
Oh, excuse me, what was your question, Phil?
My question was, is there any common space?
Oh,
That was my question. I would appreciate if my question could get answered.
Is there common space?
I'm working towards it.
You can't just answer yes or no?
Well, it's a
Because I
condominium.
have follow-up questions. I didn't want to hear this whole thing. If part of your presentation, you'll have time for it in your presentation. I would just like my question answered.
There's common land. It's a condominium.
It's common land
Okay.
available. Next question.
My point was going to be that if there is common land and we require any form of amenities, whether it be benches or whatever it is, where we require them could probably most likely wind up being in the wrong place and what the owners, eventual owners, don't want them there. So it's my opinion that it should be left up to the owners that buy the property and members of the condo association so that they can place them where they want them. And I don't think we should be doing that.
Board members, David?
I concur, we should not be enforcing the amenities of a playground situation. My rationale is that the contours of the developed project don't lend themselves to significant flat areas.
I agree for a different reason, just if the regulation doesn't require it, then I think that we're in shaky ground.
Collis?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, I think this started when it was mentioned, well, there is conservation area available nearby, next door, I think, on the next lot or something. And the question was, well, what does that mean? Is it an easement? Is it open to the public? What does it mean when we say there's conservation areas next door?
Where was it, when was that said, Collis? I'm having trouble remembering that.
That was at the meeting last night, it was mentioned.
Oh, at the conservation meeting.
At the conservation, and just to update the board just quickly of what Collis is mentioning, is that there is an existing easement that was given by the Langleys that runs up the edge of this property.
Okay.
It's actually part of our easement package that there's a slight readjustment of that easement. And the only benefit of that easement is for a walking trail only, and it's to access a land up above the tower property. There's a chunk of land up there, and I don't know the history of why that came about, but it was land that was obviously never going to be developed. It was very high up on the hill, and it was going to be land that was not developed and able to be, had a conservation easement put over it. So they gave this access, so if the town or the Conservation Commission or any entity with the authorization of the town wanted to put a walking path to get to that land, that was the access point for them to do that.
Okay.
And so, I guess that's how that came up. And that is reflected on our plan. The existing easement is reflected on the plan. And as I said, because there's a slight bump with the drainage out into that area, we adjusted or proposed to adjust with an easement deed a relocation of that portion of the walking trail, and actually we put it on the area that, for the maintenance of the pond, that's 10 feet wide. So any portion of the walking trail in that area could utilize the 10-foot wide, gravel access.
Okay.
So, if I can.
Please, Colin.
So that's great, that provides additional insight, Doug, and I appreciate that. So that is available for public access, it's
Yeah.
unrestricted.
Yes, and my understanding is yes.
So owners of these condominiums would be able to use that to access that property. I think it was the cell tower up there, right? And I think.
Behind the cell tower.
Behind the cell tower.
We'd have to look at the old approvals, Collis, because I don't
Yeah.
remember that portion of that approval
I think it
when the
was,
cell
I
tower was approved on that site.
think it was the Grand George
Oh,
property.
the Android property is above that, yes.
Yeah, and the problem with how steep it was. and
Right.
But it's an unconstructed walking trail at this time. There is no trail at
Right.
this time. Okay.
So that sheds additional light on it, because that does provide, in my opinion, opportunities for recreation.
Yeah, and that's actually connected right to the rail trail
Yeah.
edge. So
Yeah.
you could come in you could take the rail trail or you could
Yeah.
utilize that.
That's very helpful.
And I concur with the board members that think that we don't really have the authority to require anyone to do amenities for a project. That's the contractor, the developer's choice to decide it, and we don't have the authority to require it. We can suggest it, and if they like our idea and they want to do it, that's up to them, but it's really not our purview to require it, so.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just add quickly, when I was going on my sidebar, and I apologize for that, but that's the point I was going to get to, is that essentially, when you have a condominium development, the owners collectively are going to decide. So if we were to prepare or propose a jungle gym or something behind somebody's unit, they might say collectively, we don't want that there. We would have wanted this at a different spot, and it's in their purview to do that. And that's exactly what you stated, and that was.
They may not want a jungle gym.
Right, exactly. Or what if, if there's no kids in the development and everybody buys and there's no children that live there, there's no need for a jungle gym. If it was an apartment, that would be different because there's going to be turnover and additional,
Okay.
So Joanne, was there a recreational impact fee paid for this? I presume.
There will be, all the impact fees, all.
Right.
Okay,
So my point is there's an opportunity there.
there is an
to
opportunity for them
access
to
some of those
access.
funds.
Yes. Thank you. Anybody else? So the next one goes to you, Scott. Temporary construction easements for grading on the town property for the pond. That's something you would handle administratively, Scott?
That would go through planning, and so Joanne and I would both review that one.
Okay. Number 8 is regarding irrigation system. Did you state that you were willing to install an irrigation system as part of this plan?
We added a note onto the site plan of the plans you have requiring irrigation. The only clarification I ask, I was listening to Joanne's intro, is that it would not be appropriate, in our opinion, to require that prior to any COs, because many times you have projects that are partially complete that may have still outstanding landscaping depending on the time of year, and so we wouldn't want it to be restricted to allowing any COs.
Okay, we're going to do to you what we did at the project across from the villa.
Okay.
If you are down to your last couple of COs,
Then that's
then
different.
we still have leverage.
Yes,
At that point, if you want to fill out your COs, you have to bond the amount,
fair.
same as they had to bond their landscape.
No issue with that.
That's a clear-cut answer to the problem.
Yep.
Does the board concur with that?
Yes.
What if I say the last 5 COs?
You can pick a number, Joanne. Derek picked it down at the other one, as I remember.
Okay.
But I assume the intent here is it's going to be a designed irrigation system, is that the intent?
Yes.
Because there's other ways to irrigate
All right,
landscaping.
so that'll be a note that staff will handle. Provide the easement for the sections that the rail trail goes through the applicant's property on the lower portion of the site. That question in my mind is the selectmen's business, right, Collis?
Which one are you on?
Nine.
Number 9,
Number 9.
easements for the section of the rail trail.
Yeah, yes,
So,
yep,
and will the selectmen be able to handle that if it's presented to them?
yes, of course.
Okay.
Yep.
Then provide no parking fire lane sign, fire lane to be removed. You talked about that. You've already said you do that. revise the sidewalk from 4 feet to 5 feet.
It's reflected on the plan.
Permission needed from the select board to allow the driveway to cross the rail trail property. I don't know the answer to that, you're gonna have to go to the board of selectmen.
Okay.
I brought the point up that it's a pre-existing driveway, and I'm not certain how the select board will answer that question. And how about snow storage? What are you doing about snow storage?
Well, we do have snow storage shown on the plan, on the site plan. We have areas. We also have a note on the site plan that requires any excess snow, if we have a banner year of snow, that it would have to be removed and deposited at a legal dumping site for
Does
snow.
that have to go on the condo docs, Joanne, the snow removal clause that requiring them to be taking it away?
Yeah, because it's
once
their
the-
expense.
Because once these folks sell out the next year, who's gonna be responsible for the snow removal? Because these folks don't own it anymore.
Right, it does need to be in there.
Yeah,
Condo docs.
otherwise they're gonna
Yeah.
be here looking for the town.
That was one of the concerns of the Concom as well, as these postage stamp size snow storage areas.
Right.
That's just not the way snow removal companies deal with snow.
Okay, we'll move
I
down.
have one
Phil,
question
go ahead.
before we move on. The snow storage, is that something that you included in what you handed out and was not on the old sheets?
No, I believe it was on the original. The snow storage areas have been on, and the notation on the site plan requiring the removal in excess was on the.
Was on, I thought it was. What's the change? Is there a change between what you handed out?
No, not on that comment. We
So
didn't
the-
add any additional snow storage. I mean, I guess our position is that you're gonna be able to pile snow in areas, if it becomes in
Allowed.
excess, it have to be removed.
Okay, no, reason why I'm asking, just a clarification for other board members, what's the difference between what you handed out tonight and what was
No
here?
change on that.
So there's no
comment.
change,
Yeah.
right, okay, thank you.
And some of these items that we've already checked off, are they already on this revised plan that you gave us to look at tonight?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And you're- and
Everything
for the
you've
record, you're
mentioned so
stating
far.
that they've been addressed on the plan.
Yep, like the lighting, the sidewalk, the easements.
That's 3 of 4 so far, you probably have one more in your, think of it, we'll get to it later. Okay, we're gonna go on to DPW. Intent to cut, you're gonna do an intent to cut, obviously, for cutting trees. Does that go through you, Scott?
Well, no, the note has to be on the plan. It's just it's one of our regulations that you have to have a note on the plan about the intent to cut, so.
Okay, that note will appear on the plan. We talked about the stone wall being removed, but it is, you and your neighbor both own it, and you will document to the satisfaction of the planning department that you both share the wall and you both agree to the removal of it.
Yes.
Probably just a letter from the Langleys would be
Okay.
sufficient.
TBM, you're gonna show a TBM on the
Looks like
plan?
there's 2 on there now.
2 TBMs?
Yep, so
Okay.
that was done.
Does the traffic report get stamped by a
It did.
licensed engineer?
That did.
Okay, Goffstown Sewer Commission approval required. Dave, have we already approved this project? I can't remember.
I don't recall.
Have we approved your project? Did you come in and ask if there was enough capacity in the system to accept your project?
I thought we discussed that at that meeting.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure, we'll check the record, but that's the main question you need to ask. Is there enough capacity to accept?
You've been to the sort of.
Yeah, we made a full
Yes,
presentation.
Okay.
So that's, it would have been discussed,
Yeah.
yes. I
Sewer
just can't
permits from the
recall.
commission,
We
yes.
just had other more important things.
Accessibility fee required, that's part of the payment plan. Demolition permits from the building department, for your house you're gonna tear down, you're gonna obtain necessary demolition permits. Driveway permit from DOT, that's not us. Building department permits, yes. Water precinct, you said you were gonna meet with them? At the last meeting, you had a meeting planned with them?
Yep, they
You're all set with
were
them?
all set with the plans, and the applicant met with to discuss fees and whatnot.
The rest of them, I'm not even gonna ask you because they're boilerplate ones, as-built, pre-construction meeting, site inspections, for general plan conformance, drainage maintenance agreement, PDF of approved plans. Do you agree to the changing of the, from the assessing department about they want them numbered instead of letters and numbers? Is that something you're willing to work with?
We reflected that on the condo plan in your set.
So that whole section is checked off.
So that's new, that's on what you handed out tonight.
That was on the other plan as well, I believe. We made that update, I thought, but I could be wrong.
I don't remember.
I know it's on the plan you have in front of you.
Okay, we're at the bottom of page 8, Conservation Commission. One of the Conservation Commission stated that dumpster location should be shown on the plan. Give us another quick overview of what your garbage plan is and recycling plan is for the site.
So all the units have garages. The intent is for every unit owner to have an individual trash bin that would be picked up weekly. That would be done by a private contracting company. There were some questions about that brought up at the Conservation Commission last night. They said, I think Patty said that she didn't think that there was any services like that available around. That wasn't true. We confirmed with Pinard that they do offer that service, individual pickup. So that's our position. We think it's a cleaner, way to do it, and so that's what we're proposing.
So Joanne, do we have to put that in the condo docs as well, so that they're not screaming for green and blue cans, that they can roll them down to Mass Road?
Recycling too.
Right, for trash pickup from the town.
That would be up to the condominium if they want to also have recycling service, but all I can say is that it will be individual trash collection pickup from.
But that is a site, Joanne, it needs to be stated in the condo docs, because that's not going to be reversed when the people come complaining to the Board of Selectmen that we want trash pickup
Right.
at our residence. So we need green and blue cans, so we can put 40 of them in a row down on Mass Road every Wednesday morning.
I personally don't think it's a great imposition to say, show us someplace on your site plan where you can locate a dumpster. So we know that it's there, it's dedicated.
Would it be possible to show a dumpster location as an alternate to your trash plan? Do you
No.
have that built into your?
Not without regrading an area or affecting drainage. I don't see the need, I guess I'm so confused why we can't just have individual trash pickup.
I'm not saying you can't, I'm saying we're looking for a backup plan in case it.
We don't really have an ability to do that without modifying the grading or drainage.
Scott, you're shaking your head.
Flat space to do it.
Board, we all good with, to move on?
Yes.
Didn't sound like college was, unfortunately.
Not buying that for 1 minute, but that's okay.
Okay,
We're
I'm
talking a
looking,
dumpster here.
page 9 is blank for pictures and colors. I don't see any more else. So Joanne, have I covered all of the points that you wanted to bring up for addressing this evening by using your outline, your yellow outline?
Yes.
So everything that we've discussed tonight between you and Scott, can they be handled administratively by your respective departments?
Yes.
Okay, Scott?
Yes.
Thank you. So would you like to make any other presentation at this time, Doug? I know I've taken the whole thing away from you, but I wanted to.
I know,
make sure
I love
we were-
talking,
I wanted to
but,
be concise and clear.
But no, I think I am comfortable with where we're at.
All right, at this time then, I'm going to ask you to step back and I'm going to open the public hearing. Or maybe not. 8:10. Anybody wish to come up and speak in regards to this application? Carmen, are you getting up? No? Okay. Well, you're here, I didn't know if you were here. Okay, folks, any other discussion items? Well, I'm going to close the public hearing. Any other items that we have left out of this discussion that need to be brought up? And I know it's not a planning matter, but you do agree to come back to the sewer commission with your temporary crossing of the rail trail for construction purposes. You agree to that?
Yep, that can be a
If you
condition.
want to be at the next sewer commission meeting, why don't you get with the sewer secretary and make a slot for yourselves.
Okay.
Thank you. Board members, any other discussion on this application or questions for staff or the applicant for that matter?
Mr. Chair, my only, so I know that we went through those, and I know Doug would like us to eliminate some of the conditions of approval. I'd still recommend if we go forward with the motion that we do it with the conditions that Joanne drafted, because just like a quick spot check that the unit numbering was updated on the site plan sheet, but is not updated on the condominium plan sheet and things, so.
Well, that's up, she'll check the plan.
So that's where I want for her to check the plans, but I want to keep those conditions as were drafted by staff, so that way staff can go through. I agree that a number of things have already been addressed, but I'd rather keep the conditions, if we make a motion keep the conditions as were recommended by staff, and it doesn't delay the applicant if they've already been addressed. It's just gonna be a quick check off anyways, but just to make sure that nothing slips through, that, then Joanne and Scott are kind of chasing, at least we can keep the conditions. So I think that the proposed conditions with the numbering needing to be adjusted on pages 9 and 10, and then adding in the conditions that, from
Scott's
page
conditions.
7, Scott's conditions from page 7 as well.
How many conditions does Scott need to add in?
So
make a note.
11.
So you have 11 DPW conditions to be added?
If you want to just say all of the items highlighted, you could do it
Well,
that way.
you've already put them in here in the,
Well,
your proposed conditions of approval duplicate a lot of the highlighted stuff.
Yeah.
And we can't say that because then you have to put every one of those highlighted conditions on the plan.
Okay.
We don't want to have
So
a whole plan set just for conditions.
I think
Whole
if there were, so I did see, I think that the report stamped by the licensed engineer, Scott, you said to eliminate that one,
that
so.
one was completed prior to even last meeting.
So with the corrected numbering, it would be proposed conditions of approval 1 through 19, plus 12 conditions.
Wait a minute, where'd you get 19? You took the first 5
The first 5.
and then took 2, 3, 4,
And then
5 and added them to the back end? 4
Added them
more?
to the back end, but
So that brings you up
eliminated,
6 and 4 is 20 then, right?
but we eliminated number 11.
Or we eliminated 11?
Scott
Okay.
said that one's all set,
Well, you can leave it in there because it's,
if we leave it.
they already have it.
You're right.
We can leave it right in.
So leave.
So we're gonna
leave
make
20.
17 through 20, they will be 2, 3, 4, 5 on the first panel. Right? You're gonna take conditions
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, and 5 from 9, page 9 of your worksheet, under proposed conditions of approval.
Yep, we're keeping those.
You're gonna take 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yep.
move them to the back end and add them as 17 through 20.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because that way we get the numbering.
Yep.
We can fix the numbering that way. And then where are the DPW conditions, Scott, we're adding beyond the 20?
Page 7, under miscellaneous comments and conditions, those were the boilerplate ones that we kind of breezed through earlier. Do we need to read those into the record?
No, we can just state them from our documents. So after 20, we're adding the miscellaneous comments and conditions section to the conditions of approval?
Yep.
So that becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're going 20 to 32 is the miscellaneous comments and conditions. So we'll have 32 conditions of approval. And they're all administrative. Everybody's happy with administrative. So Joanne, if these are met prior to the final signing of the plans, do they have to appear on the plan as a condition of approval?
No, then we take them
So
all.
once you check off the ones that have been met, the
Correct.
final lit conditions of approval will be you and Scott to work out what the final conditions of approval are that actually appear on the plan set.
Correct.
Good. Everybody concur with that?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right, any other discussion on what we're doing here? Because we seem to have it pretty squared away, if I may say. More discussion? You may want to go home.
So I'd make a motion to approve the site plan. Joanne, I don't know if I need to read the, I guess the site plan for map 5, lot 54, 54-1, with 32 conditions of approval as just noted and noted in the staff report.
Colleen made the motion.
I'll second it. And there are no waivers required, right?
Yeah, I never even, did we have
We've
waivers?
already approved. I think
Or do we
last
already
week.
handle waivers?
Yeah, you handled them.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
they
what I
were-
mean.
Yeah.
So we don't have to
Yeah.
deal with waivers. They're all done.
There were 2 waivers that were approved on 9/14.
I just want to make sure we didn't miss
Tell me
it.
what they were.
One was section 4A
Right.
maximum grade
Yeah, it's right on
for the
page 5.
driveway.
On page
And the
5.
other one was the road standards,
Yep.
maximum grade within 100 feet of the intersection for the driveway.
Yeah, they were approved on 9/14.
And you looked at all the other elements of this project that have been met, all the plans have met, no more other waivers are required. Thank you. Anybody else? We do have a motion and a second. I was holding on, any discussion on the motion before we move forward? Anything else to discuss? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve this plan with the 32 conditions, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
We've got one opposition.
and I'll state for the record, my vote is like for the issue relative to the dumpster. I think it is outrageous that they can blast away massive amounts of ledge to accommodate building number 3, and they can't accommodate a 10-foot by 10-foot concrete pad with a stockade fence around it, so these people have some place to put their bulky items. Because you know when their barrels are full, they're gonna put it in their truck or their car, and they're gonna find some place to dump it. We've seen it around town all the time. They're gonna find a back road and they're gonna dump it.
Well, they can get transfer station, just like everyone else does.
I'm just saying, I'm hanging my hat on that. I'm casting a dissenting vote solely for that reason. I don't think it's outrageous. It doesn't even pass the straight face test to say there's no place to accommodate a dumpster on the site.
Thank you, Carlos. All right, the motion has been made and approved, and the vote is, other than one nay, the vote was approved, so the project is approved.
Thank you all.
Okay. Joanne, do we have anything else for the agenda this evening?
No,
We put off those other 2 items till a future meeting.
right, that's all we had.
Can you tell us how our zoning, our development regulations are doing, if you have any information? Oh, Doug? Doug?
Coming back.
Yep, come on back. Could you leave those extra small plans with Joanne that you had to spare, so if any other board member wants a copy, Joanne could provide them with a copy. It would be Kimberly. Barbara's not here. Brian's not here. Oh, he has enough, Joanne, there?
Yeah.
Thank you very
You
much.
said Barbara.
No problem.
Barbara's not here yet.
Yep.
Kimberly, Gail's not
Brian.
here. Brian, so at least we need another 4 sets. if you
I've
have-
got them,
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
more than 4.
I wanted to make sure I grabbed them before he left town.
So, your question on the development
Yes, please.
regulations? I talked to Eric the other day about it.
From Hoyle Tanner.
No, from DPW.
Oh, Eric from DPW.
And we still have to wrap some things up with Hoyle Tanner. So because everyone's been so busy during this building season, it's been recommended that we just wait till like things cool off a little bit as far as the weather goes. And then DPW will be able to devote some more time to it.
I freed up a little more time and I plan to start digging into it. So
Okay.
the MS4 reporting that I've been pushing to has been submitted, so now I'll be able to start to dig into it. Because I'd really like to see, we have stormwater standards that we drafted to go along with the stormwater ordinance. These are all part of our MS4. The ordinance has been passed, but the stormwater standards that go along with them have not been. And we need to get them going, and I think part of it is we've taken all the stormwater info out of the actual development regs, and they're gonna be in these stormwater standards. So for us to be able to get that draft,
Yeah.
basically not draft and as the rule, we need the new
Yeah.
regulations completed too. So I'm going to focus on that soon, and I'd like Eric to look at it too. So it may still be a little while to get both of us with our eyes on it, so.
I would like this board also to discuss at the next meeting, Joanne, I'd like to have a substantive discussion on this inspection business. I think it's time for us to adopt in our development regulations that the town's staff is only responsible to inspect items that are in the town's right-of-way. And any escrow account should be established for the purpose of the outside third-party engineering firm doing inspections for off-site improvements on all projects in this town for future. The staff has enough to do, they're shorthanded, and they're not making any money on this anyway. All we ever do is charge their time. So it's a win-win for the developers, for our staff inspecting. Plus, we're putting them in the line of fire for complaints, and I don't want that anymore. So I want a substantive discussion. I want it added to our development regulations or wherever we need to add it to clearly state who's going to be responsible for inspections and who's going to pay for it.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out, because driveway permits are still
Right away
often, yeah, okay.
Right away.
So all the drainage improvements on the site
are going to be
are not part of the
third-party
driveway.
engineers.
Okay.
You would review, if it entered the town right-of-ways drainage system,
Mhm.
you would have a review aspect of the final cubic feet per minute that leaves that site entering your drainage system. That would be the end of your discussion
Okay.
with them. How it gets to the point where they determine the cubic feet per second
It'll be
is
the
their
third
discussion
party. Okay.
with their engineer and a third-party engineer.
Okay.
And then constructing it to the proper standards because it's their issue.
Yeah, I'm all for it, and pretty much everything we've done recently has been, we've shipped off to a third party, so.
Good, well, I'd like to have it in the regulations, that no one
That's
can
fine with
say,
me.
that no one can say that, well, you know, you let this guy have it, so we should have it too.
We're also looking to start having some suggestions about some zoning changes. And I think it might be helpful to have maybe a small subcommittee take a look at what we have so far. The building inspector has proposed a few things. I have a small list of just items that have been brought up during the year. But it would be good to have a planning board or a couple planning board members' eyes on it to see if there's anything that you'd like to see proposed to the
In the interest of
voters.
inter-board cooperation, I think that we should almost be able to be available to discuss, well, we do zoning changes, but we do them without the input of the zoning board of adjustment.
Right, that which is.
So I'm thinking maybe we should include the zoning board of adjustment member assigned by the zoning board of adjustment to include their input. If we're talking about a zoning change, what do they see as problematic or what do they see as helpful?
That's prudent.
So I would like to see us move forward with
Yep.
inter-board cooperation with the zoning board of adjustment to make sure if we do a zoning amendment, we're doing it right.
Yeah,
Okay.
they can identify their concerns up front and early.
Because
Yeah.
I know we have a sort of there are certain people that have sort of a back and forth with zoning and planning, and I'm not one of them. I'd like to see everything cooperate and work smoothly.
Is there anyone who wants to serve on a little subcommittee? Colleen?
I'd like to thank you.
Sure, I would too.
Colin? Okay.
And that is for
We'll get
development
something going on
regulations or zoning?
Zoning.
So let's reach out to the zoning board of adjustment and ask if they would like to assign a representative to work on that with us.
They have a meeting next week.
So we'd like to extend an olive branch, if
Okay.
you will. I know Phil's chomping at the bit. Anything else?
Nothing that I have.
So you're going to set up a zoning, what are you going to call it, a subcommittee?
Subcommittee for zoning. Also, the Economic Development Committee is still looking for a planning board member, if anyone's interested. They meet the first Wednesday of the month at 6 o'clock. Their meetings are usually only about an hour, sometimes hour and a half, that's it. And they're meeting the 4th of October, they're having their meeting in Pinardville.
I think we should try to get Brian to do that.
I was gonna say, I'll
He's a
volunteer.
forward-thinking,
I'll
he's a
volunteer.
forward-thinking guy, and I think Brian would make a good member
I'll
of it.
volunteer.
He's been
Well, we
voluntold.
can't do that right now. We're gonna ask him if he'd do it, but he has a lot of other commitments. That's why he's not here tonight. He had a budget meeting tonight.
Yeah,
So let's see if he's willing.
okay.
But
He wanted to be on there.
Economic
backed
Development
off.
Commission takes a real cheerful disposition to work and get things accomplished, and I lost that a long time ago. So I've been on that before, and I was not a real good member.
Motion to adjourn.
Not you, Tim.
They're meeting at the.
At least I admit it.
At the Mountain Base Brewery on the October 4th, which is their first meeting of October, or
You
their
should've
only
led with
meeting of
that.
October.
That's the, yeah.
And
Now everybody wants it.
Who said
we've
October?
extended,
Go
we've
ahead.
extended an invitation to about 100 businesses. We don't know.
How
No
many
one's-
people does that place sit?
Well,
Wait a minute.
we haven't heard from
we
any,
gonna-
well,
they have
there
it
are a few
outside,
people who
see.
can't make it,
Do
but
we
we
have to-
haven't heard a
Do
yes
we have
from
to fill out some
anyone.
kind of a public disclosure form and put it on the record that we drank a beer down there? Yeah.
we get
Not your
Army
mother.
It's a gift. You have to disclose all gifts. Everybody knows that. Okay, Phil made a motion to adjourn. Who's second?
Second.
Colleen, right on it. Anybody want to discuss Phil and Colleen's first and second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, GTV.